Today, I'm taking you through my monthly money retrospective as a 29-year-old millionaire. There's a lot of personal finance jargon on the internet, but here at Break Your Budget, we cut through the crap and focus on getting the basics right. Last month, I took you through my monthly money review for April, and you seemed to love it. So we are back with round 2, and I'm going to be taking you through my monthly money review for May. In May, I'm actually going on a big trip to Japan. If you listen to my podcast, you might know about this because I've talked about it a handful of times. So that's really going to be the theme of planning out my budget for the next month. Anyways, my monthly money review consists of 3 key steps, but step 1A is always making myself a fun little drink. So I made myself an iced latte because I like to make this experience enjoyable, and you should too. So grab your fun bevy of choice, pull up your personal finance dashboard or your basic budgeting template, and let's go through the process. The first step is to update all of your numbers, your income, your expenses, your savings, your investment contributions, any debt payments if you have them, and your net worth. This usually takes me about 20 minutes. It's actually the longest part of this entire process. I did most of this in advance of filming this video because honestly, I think that watching me track my expenses and update all of my numbers is kind of boring. But if you want me to do a video where I show you exactly how I do that step by step, I'm happy to make one. The second step of the process is self-reflection. This is, in my opinion, the most important step because it's where you actually learn how to change your spending and saving behavior. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I audit my budget and look at my total spend for the month, the variance, and where I overspent, where I underspent, if I'm happy with my progress towards my goals, and my thoughts on my net worth, because last month in April, we had a very volatile stock market month. And I will confirm before we get into it, I did already update my net worth for this month, and the results were not as shocking as I was expecting. So we can take a big, deep breath over that whole situation. The third step is planning for the month ahead. So I actually have a baseline budget that I use to forecast out for the full year. And then when we get into the actual month, I'll make little adjustments pending whatever plans I have. And like I mentioned, in May, I'm going to Japan, and that actually bleeds into June as well. So I'm going to be building that into my budget for this month, and I'll show you how I'm thinking about it. I use the personal finance dashboard to plan and manage my money. That is going to be the template that you see in this video. I highly recommend checking out the personal finance dashboard, especially as we move into a more volatile and uncertain economic period. Really, the PFD is my financial control center. So it allows me to have one specific place where everything related to my finances is happening. And honestly, when I think about the one thing that has made me feel the most confident in my finances, it's not making more money. It's not doing all of these fancy, funky things. It's being able to see where I stand at any point in time and use that information to make confident, data-driven financial decisions. And I would not be able to do that without the personal finance dashboard. If you watch this video and you're like, whoa, the PFD might be a little bit too complex for me, don't worry, I've got you covered. I have another tool. It's called the basic budgeting template. I will make sure the video tour and how you can use that is somewhere up on this screen. But think of the basic budgeting template really as that first step on your financial journey. So maybe you watch this and you're like, I'm really inspired to start budgeting, and I'm really inspired to start working through a monthly money retro, but the PFD feels like it might be a little bit too much for me. Check out the basic budgeting template, because what that tool can help you do is get in the habit of tracking your numbers and get a monthly snapshot. And then once you feel really confident with your budget, you can upgrade to the PFD. As always, if you enjoy this style of video, let me know, because I'm happy to make it a series. If you use one of my templates and you really love it, also make sure you let me know. And if you've already worked through your monthly money review, let me know in the comments so that I can give you a high five for staying on top of it. And with that, let's get into the video. So the first step in this process is updating all of our numbers. And as I mentioned in the intro, I've already gone through and updated most of my numbers. I've already updated my net worth, and I actually track my expenses every single week because I don't want to, A, not know how I'm spending throughout the month, but B, have to sit down for 30 minutes to 45 minutes and track all of my expenses. It just feels really cumbersome. But I do have a couple of quick expenses where I need to tie them up for the end of this month. And there's also a couple couple of other small things that I like to do before I move on to step 2, just so that I don't forget. I do also want to call to your attention that I have a monthly audit checklist that goes through this entire process, and it includes some quick little money tasks like paying your rent and paying off your credit cards. And I will make sure this is in the show notes as well. If you'd like to download it, it's free. But during this first step, that's when I like to pay my rent for next month. And I also will make sure before I close out of my credit cards and move on that I pay them off. So let's get into this. These are my expenses from the month. I am in the income and expense log within the personal finance dashboard. So I have tracked all of my expenses through April 27th and it's April 30th. And I've only made 2 more expenses since then, and they're pretty small. So as you can see, there are these ones right here. I have April 29th. This is a Jewel Osco, which is just a grocery store. So I'm going to log that. I'm going to select grocery. I'm going to plug this in, which is $12.42. And I'm going to put a note that it's Jewel. And this other one is Amazon. This is actually a household essential. I needed to buy dish detergent today because I've been buying the dish detergent at Aldi and it doesn't work. It doesn't clean the dishes. So whatever. Anyways, I also have 2 other quick ones that I'm going to log here from Cafe Luxe. They're actually on my Amex, but I don't want to pull up my Amex right now just for the sake of keeping this nice and streamlined. And they're both $19 because I order coffee beans from Cafe Luxe, and every 3 weeks I get a regular like caffeinated blend, and then every 6 weeks I have a decaf come, and they both just like synced up this month. So those are my expenses for the rest of the month. I also have one more paycheck that I need to log. So I pay myself a salary every month of about $2,100 or $4,100. And I also take distributions for savings and stuff, which I have not taken my distribution yet. So I'll log that probably at the end when I look at all of my numbers. But I am going to log this second paycheck, which is $2,048. And then I am also going to log in 2 places my solo 401k contribution, because I put $845 into my solo 401k every paycheck. And that keeps me on track to max out my solo 401k at $23,500 by the end of the year. So I'm going to log it here, and then I'm going to go into my savings and investment log, and I am going to also log that contribution right here, $845, paycheck $430. And what this does is it just makes it easy for me to keep track of those contributions when I get to the end of the year and need to do my taxes. So with that, the last few things I'm going to do, like I mentioned, is I am going to pay my rent for the month of May. And what I like to do is I like to do it before I move on to the next step, because it just makes sure that I don't forget to do it and while I'm in tracking mode. So I'm just going to log May 1, and I'm going to select rent, and I'm going to put 2781, which is the amount I pay in rent in my like liability waiver here. And then I'm also going to have to pay utilities, but I need to look at my statement before I can actually log that. And with that, we are updated numbers wise for the month of April. So this is a super straightforward and pretty simple process. It's made much easier if you track your expenses weekly, which I highly recommend that you do. I have a video on how I do this. I'll make sure it's up on the screen somewhere. But if you don't have a weekly money routine where you're going through and just taking 5 or 10 minutes to update your expenses, you really should be doing that. And I like to do it manually, clearly, because transparently, I think that manually updating your numbers keeps you really close to your financials. It makes your money feel a little bit more real. I am not against using automated trackers if that makes more sense for you. But if you are someone who struggles with spending, or you just want to have a really close pulse on your finances, manually tracking is going to change your life. So with that, I'm going to pay off my cards. I'm going to quickly pay my rent, and then we are going to get into step number 2. Okay, moving into the second step here, this is where we're going to do a little bit of self-reflection. So as you can see here, I have my annual spending plan up, and let me zoom in a little bit. I just have my expenses here for the sake of ease of use, and then we'll get into my April snapshot in a moment. But basically, the process that I like to follow with this is I like to look at my plan versus my actual and really see what were the areas where I was super over or super under, and use that to A, compare against my goals, and B, indicate what I need to pay attention to going into the next month. So when we look at my essential expenses, I'm actually $233 under what I had budgeted. So to me, that's a win. When I look at my non-essential expenses though, I'm $676 over what I had originally budgeted. And you can very clearly see that the driver of that is shopping. So we'll get into that shortly. When I look at my essentials, my rent is what it is every month, and my utilities average anywhere from like $50 to $100 a month. That's totally normal and on par. For groceries, I was a little bit under this month because I was away for a few days. I went on a business retreat in Texas, and so I didn't have to buy groceries for a week. So that is the reason why that number is a little bit lower. Insurance, I prepaid my insurance in January. As you can see here, this is just renter's insurance, so I don't have a monthly payment for that. Drugstore, I don't know what I got at the drugstore, actually. I think it was just, I went to Target for like miscellaneous things. I don't even remember going to Target, but I think that's a really classic example of why it's so important to track your expenses, because I would have completely forgotten about that. I think it was just like travel minis or something, now that I'm thinking about it. Subscriptions, I must have just not logged my subscription. So this is another reason why it's really important to do this. And my subscriptions, I'm pretty sure, are just Spotify, and that is $11.99. So I'll make sure that that's logged, not a big deal. Household essentials, all this was my dishwasher detergent. So the thing about household essentials is like, I don't really need to buy these regularly, but I always put a little bit of money there just in case. I did buy paper towels this month, but I got those at Aldi, so I didn't feel the need to break that out. Transportation, I did not get on public transportation this month, so that's a 0. And miscellaneous, I'm actually really proud of myself for not putting anything in there, because I have a tendency to just plop stuff in my miscellaneous category, and I'm really working on not doing that. So overall, my general consensus on my essential expenses is good on me. I did a great job. But my essentials aren't really an area that I struggle with. So there's no action item for me here. The areas where I struggle with clearly are my non-essential expenses. And so when I look at my restaurants going out, I spent $300, which makes sense. I really didn't do a lot of like eating out or going out this month. I did a little bit clearly, but not a ton. And to be quite honest, I don't really mind this number. So, I'll keep budgeting $300 for it. And if one month I spend that much, then yay, that means I had a social month. But I'm finding that a lot of the social activities I'm doing aren't really centered around drinking or going out to eat, which I am actually enjoying because I like to eat at home. Although, again, as we get into the summer months, I'm sure that's going to change a little bit. The big driver here is clearly shopping, and I actually had intended to not spend any money on shopping this month, which I, obviously didn't achieve. And the reason why is because when I was planning to go on my business retreat to Austin, I realized like I really didn't have any appropriate warm weather day clothes to wear that weren't workout clothes. And what I'm discovering through my wardrobe round out journey is a lot of the clothes that I have in my closet are workout clothes or occasion clothes. And the clothes that I wear on a day-to-day basis, I actually don't really have what I want. Like I am building that out. I've bought a bunch of things, but a lot of the things that I have are not daytime clothes. It's actually a really fascinating thing to discover. Because we shop for specific events. We're not shopping for day-to-day wear, especially when we work from home. So I did buy a few things because I needed things for my trip to Austin. I also needed a few things for my trip to Japan next month. And so to me, it just felt like it's okay for me to buy a couple of things, and they're all things that are day clothes that I'll wear all the time anyways. So that was that. And, I still have the money. I think this is a really good example of so my total target on a monthly basis is actually $5,000 or less. This month I had a lower target, which I didn't reach because of these clothes, but even with the clothes, I'm still well under that $5,000 threshold. So I'm happy with it. Self-maintenance, I spent $71 because I got a pedicure and then I got like my annual manicure cleanup. I like to get a manicure once a year. I just get a clear coat, but really the goal is for them to clean up my cuticles and everything. Honestly, I don't really think it's worth it. My friend wanted to get a manicure, and so I was like, you know what, I'll just go with you. This isn't really that big of a deal, but that's why that's over. Ubers, I didn't do a ton of Ubering because it's been a little bit warmer out, so I've been able to walk around, which has been fabulous. And the Ubers that I took to and from the airport were business expenses because I was on a business trip, so I don't have to count those here. Coffee, I'm over. I don't really care about this. This is like ordering coffee out, going out for coffee. This is not an expense that I feel super strongly about. Workout, the only thing I paid for this month was my form workout. I actually paused my class pass because I'm finding that I wasn't really using it. So I just paid for form, and I'm almost out of my Pilates. So I'll have to repurchase a class pack for that sometime, probably in July. And that will be about $500, which is unfortunate for me, but such is life. I didn't book any travel stuff this month. I didn't have any gifts to buy anyone. And the last one here is activities. So this number is actually quite high for a few reasons. One, because this month I decided to sign up for tennis lessons, which were fabulous. It was 4 lessons for $145, which is a really good deal. They're group lessons, but still a really good deal. I also played pickleball, and I also started a little mini garden on my patio. So I had to buy a pot and a plant and all that kind of stuff for that. So that is why my activities is higher than anticipated, a lot. And honestly, again, that's totally fine. I have no issue spending money on hobbies, and I'm probably going to make that adjustment for the month of May. So that's my overview for April. I'll jump into my April snapshot here. So as you can see, I have my income. I did end up taking a distribution from my business. I took a $5,000 distribution this month. I share that to be transparent. However, I don't always take a distribution. I just have the money. I got a little bit of a tax return. So part of that is, going towards this distribution. It went directly into my Vanguard account. If you watched my net worth breakout video, which you should if you hadn't, you would have known that I actually am underweight in my international investment. So I took all of that money and put it into an international ETF. So a win on the financial goals. My essentials and non-essentials, as we discussed. I'm not actively putting any money towards my savings. I have enough cash. I don't need any more money in those cash accounts, so they are what they are. Qualified investments, those are my 2 401k contributions. My non-qualified investments, that's my $5,000 distribution. And then I also invest $120 every 2 weeks using Stash just into an S&P 500 ETF. So that's what that 240 is. And I'm really happy with this. Just to run through my money review formally. So when you use the PFD, you get access to these monthly snapshots, which are fab because I like to see everything in one place. I like looking at these charts where I stack up versus, what I planned, what I spent, where I'm over or under. But I also really like having this information over here so I can see what my goals were. So clearly I did spend a lot more than $100 on shopping, so I didn't reach that one. I didn't spend any money on beauty, which we love. I'm using what I have and stick to my monthly targets. I did for the most part with the exception of shopping, so that's fine. A couple of questions over here that I like to discuss, which I've kind of already got into it, but where I overspent in shopping and I overspent in activities. Both of those were preventable. And I was realistic on both. It's just things came up and I made decisions, and such is life. And that is money management, right? Things come up. You can look at your numbers and decide if it makes sense for you. And that's why knowing your numbers and tracking your expenses is so important. I feel pretty good about my spending. Even though I'm over for the month, I'm very happy with where I fell. So, even though, like I said, I spent a little bit on shopping that I wasn't planning to, it's totally fine because I still pretty much fell within my personal reasonable threshold. And I'm happy with that. Like, that is the ultimate goal. And I think that's a really important note to make is sometimes, and I would say overarchingly on a month to month basis, it's less important to be worried about the category spend and more important to be looking at your total spend, essential, non-essential. Like if I plan to spend $100 on shopping and I went way over, but I'm way under on everything else and my total essential spend is close enough to what I had anticipated spending, that's fine because I'm still hitting my spending targets in total, right? So think about it from that regard. I'm proud of the savings progress I made. I'm super happy I could take a distribution this month. From spending, like in general, I think overall I can always improve with my shopping, but I am being more intentional, and that's just a month over month practice, right? Like I'm thinking about what I'm buying. I'm buying things that are high quality when I do make a purchase, and I'm making sure that I wear them. And that's really all I can do. I'm not going to not buy clothes. I'm just going to be much more thoughtful about it because as I get older, I want to like the things that I have and I want to like how I look and I want to like what I'm wearing. And that means I need to be buying things that I like, and that's okay because I can afford it. And if I couldn't afford it, it would be a different conversation. So that's really my thought process on some of these improvements or areas of my budget I did really well with. My essentials, I was under. And I do feel like I improved my finances since last month. I think the big thing I was nervous about this month was tracking my net worth. And when I did go through and track my net worth, I actually realized like a lot of the noise that happened with all of the tariffs was obviously, a big, huge thing and the stock market went crazy, but it did actually make up a lot of the gains or a lot of the losses. Not all of them. I'm still down since last month, but I'm not down as much as I was expecting to be. And I feel really good with where I landed. I will say I anticipate that the next couple of months, probably through the end of this year, until we learn more about the tariffs, transparently, I'm really not paying that close attention to it because I don't want to, and it doesn't change what I'm doing. But the more we see this sort of unfold, we'll have a better idea of what to expect. But regardless, I think I'm just anticipating market volatility and economic uncertainty for the foreseeable future. And as a result, I'm just playing financial defense. So part of that is tracking all of my numbers and doing these reviews. So with that wraps up step number 2. And we are going to get into step number 3, which is updating my budget for May. We've made it to the last part of my monthly money review, which is putting together my budget for the next month. So for me in May, it's a little bit of a weirder month because this is when I'm going on my big trip to Japan. So all of the big expenses related to the trip are already paid for, and I will do like a full breakdown of all of that at a later point. But, we're going on a cruise. I've already paid for the cruise. We've already paid for all of the flights. Like, really what I need to budget for is the money that I'm going to be spending while I'm there. The beauty of the fact that we are going on a cruise means a lot of the meals we don't have to pay for, but we're going to be spending some time in Tokyo on the front end and some time in Korea on the back end. And, I have a bunch of things that I want to buy from a shopping standpoint. So I'll get into my total budget for that. The reason I bring this up is obviously because my spending in May is going to look a little bit different, but also because since I know I'm going to be spending some money for the time that I'm there, I'm going to do my best to pull back some of my expenses up until I leave to just help, offset the additional spending that I'll be doing in the best way I can. We're going to be realistic. So we'll start with my essentials for May. I have a baseline budget. So if you use the personal finance dashboard or the basic budgeting template, within the categories and goals tabs, you can set your targets for every month, and these forecast out to your annual spending plan. And then you can override these in the plan section, and make those adjustments. So that's what I do. So my baseline budget is already forecasted out here, and I'll make whatever adjustments I need to on the monthly basis. So we'll start with my essential expenses first. This area, there isn't going to be a ton of changes because my essential expenses are mostly recurring. So my rent is going to stay the same. Utilities, I'm not going to make any adjustments. For groceries, I brought this down to $200 because my regular grocery budget is $300 a month. I am leaving on May 21st, so I just need to have enough groceries for 3 weeks, and I'm going to do my best to like eat through stuff in my pantry and what I have. So hopefully I spend even less than this because I'm just really going to be buying produce. But this is my target. And moving on to insurance, I don't have anything here. Drugstore, I don't need anything, but I may need to re-up some like travel size things or get some containers for travel size things. So I'm going to keep that there. Subscriptions, this is just Spotify. Household essentials, I'm not anticipating needing anything, but I'm going to keep that just in case. Transportation, I'm actually going to bring this down because I really haven't been using public transport. I've been doing a lot of walking. I think I am actually going to be venturing this month, but we'll keep it at $20 and we'll see if that holds. And then miscellaneous other, I like to keep that as a buffer, but my goal is to not really put anything in there. Moving down to my non-essentials, I have a bunch of changes that I'm going to make here. So restaurants going out, I'm going to bring this down to I'm going to bring this down to $150. I haven't really been going out to dinner a ton. And, I'm not anticipating in the 3 weekends that I'm going to be here that I'm going to go out more than once per weekend. So, I'm going to bring that down for the sake of, again, I'm trying to not go out to eat too much this month at least because I'm going to be doing a lot of that when I go to Japan. Shopping clothes, I'm going to bring this to 100 because I may buy a pair of flats before I leave. I'm having a hard time with shoes. I've done a really good job of working on my wardrobe, but shoes are so hard because I have boots, but I don't have spring closed-toed shoes that aren't a sneaker. And I feel like I need a pair of flats. So I have my eye on a few from Madewell and a few other places. So I'm just keeping that money there in case I decide to buy them. I may also just buy a pair when I am in Japan. So TBD. Shopping beauty, I don't need anything. I have enough makeup and I have all of my skincare and everything. I have a backlog of skincare that I'm working on getting through. So don't need anything there. Self-maintenance, this is my pedicure and I don't change that. Ubers, I'm going to pull this up to 100 because I'm going to be Ubering to the airport. Coffee, we'll keep there. Workout, I had put a $600 plug in here for Pilates classes because I have to buy my classes in a package. I buy 20 classes at once. And I don't think I'm going to need to do that before I leave. So I'm just going to put in $28, which is what I pay for Sammy Clark Form, which is just my at-home workout that I do in the gym in my building. Travel is where things get weird. So I'm going to delete all of these out. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Gifts. The only holiday this month is Mother's Day, and I'm taking my mom to Japan. So I don't need to buy her a gift because I already did. Activities, I'm going to plug this up to 100 because I think I'm going to take a private tennis lesson and miscellaneous will keep. So travel, I have a $2,000 budget for the 3 weeks that I'm in Japan. Like I mentioned, all of the big expenses have been paid for. I actually paid for all of this trip. And again, I'll do a whole video on that at a later point, but I'm paying for both myself and my mom, flights, the whole thing. So I have a little bit of money as well that I've set aside for spending money. And this is for, again, food and stuff, miscellaneous things when we're in Tokyo on the front end of the trip and when we are in Korea on the back end of the trip, also taxi fare, anything of that sort, transport, as well as shopping. So I have a handful of things that I want to buy while I'm there. I want to get a pair of Onitsuka Tigers. I want to get a knife for the kitchen, and souvenirs and whatnot. I'm going to be going crazy in the drugstores there and also in Korea. I want to get a facial. And this isn't included in my budget because I haven't decided if I'm going to do it yet, but I also am thinking about buying a watch. So TBD on if I actually do that. But $2,000 is in a sinking fund in my high yield savings account. I use Ally for now. And I actually might switch to SoFi, so more on that to come. And this is what my plan is. It's weird because I'm also going to be there in June. So really it's like $1,000 in May and then $1,000 in June. But I'd rather just honestly, we'll keep it at that. I think this actually probably makes sense. And then I'll come back in here and I'll, adjust this as I need to for June. I don't think I'm going to record my June just because I'll be in transit. So this is my budget for May. I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. If I can keep my other expenses low, then my Japan stuff really isn't going to impact my budget all that dramatically. So I guess we'll see how I do. I'm going to be on basically like a 3-month low spend, which it's just really not that hard. And even if I end up going over budget in Japan, I still have the money if I need it. And I want to just enjoy that trip to the fullest. So that is the budget for May. So with that, I am going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was insightful. If you like these videos, please, please, please let me know in the comments. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel because I am really focused on YouTube this year. I really want to grow and we are growing. I'm feeling really good about it. So make sure you're subscribed if you've been tuning in. And with that, I will catch you in the next one.